But Hulk Hogan and NWA-TNA have agreed to terms, and the final paperwork is being worked through this week. This was in the first week of the month. The deal isn't done. Very, very
They
important
said it was
sentence.
done on the show.
Very, extremely important sentence, Liam. The deal isn't done, but it's expected to be done. Everything's great and looks like it'll definitely happen, says one insider close to negotiations. The agreement would call for Hogan to be a big part of the TNA product, beginning with a special November 30th Sunday night 3-hour pay-per-view priced at $29.95. The proposed match is Hogan versus Jarrett, perhaps for the NWA title. Jarrett has a scheduled title match against AJ Styles on the October 22nd pay-per-view. Hogan is headed to Japan this week for a match on October 13th against Masa Chono. He'll be in Japan for 4 days and then return to the US. Hogan is looking to redeem his status after leaving WWE under less than glorious circumstances when the Mr. America gimmick was halted in mid-course after creative and financial differences with him and Vince McMahon. So Hogan is looking for his new place to live after the WWE dumped him out. Or perhaps he's actually just looking to go back to WWE and he's using all of this for leverage. But no, we won't remember mention that at all. No. But TNA are now firmly, in the month of October 2003, Liam, in the Hulk Hogan business.
I mean, at least they think they are. I mean, should we talk about... Okay, let's talk about the mindset of TNA going into this, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're in their position and you think you can get the deal done, you gotta do it, right?
I guess, like, unlike, I think, 2010, when Hogan does actually come in, I don't think there's anything to lose here for 2003 NWA-TNA. It's not like they have a firm established identity. It's not like they have like anything really going for them at this stage. They are literally desperate for attention. So unlike they kind of threw out the identity of the company to bring Hogan in and like give him all the power in the world in 2010, there's nothing to throw out here. We talked about how they had a couple good months coming off of that reboot in July, but realistically, like, who cares if you have to throw the baby out with the bathwater to get a Hogan and Jarrett match, which is kind of what they do. But yeah, you do kind of have to do it, don't you?
You got to give it a shot. So yeah, you can't really blame them for giving it a shot. You can probably blame them for starting to book it before they had it in writing.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like, that probably happens all the time, right?
Yeah, and we even talked about how, like, remember when Sting first came in? Like, literally during the show is when they got Sting to sign the deal, and they literally announced him there and then, like, at the end of the show, and they only made that deal during the pay-per-view. So it's not the first time TNA has been, like, down to the wire or willing to announce things that have just happened or may tenuously happen. So...
Yeah, but at least this Sting thing was in writing.
And Sting did actually show up.
I can't blame them for going for it. Hogan winning the NWA title probably would have been some big news for them too, and cool from a historical point of view.
The deal on the table right now would include Hogan being part of more than just the Sunday, November 30th pay-per-view, which, by the way, they do announce. They announce on the weekly pay-per-views that Bound for Glory will be November 30th, their first ever Sunday 3-hour pay-per-view. They promote it for 2 weeks before they cancel it. However, Hogan is conscious of image and doesn't want his first match back to be at the Nashville Fairgrounds, where TNA tapes every week. We'll talk about that a little as well, because there's a lot of back and forth about where this show would actually take place in terms of where they'd actually run the show. That could create the image he's on the downswing of his career, said one involved insider. The arena is small and the fans may be less apt to cheer him, since fans that attend each week at the same arena are typically more hardcore and rebellious. There's some back and forth on people who like or hate Hogan, because obviously there's a lot of Hogan related segments this month. So there are Hogan chants, and there are like we want Hogan chants at one stage, and there are also a counter chant of no we don't.
There's definitely some anti-Hogan sentiment in the asylum.
Which is not the first time there's anti-Hogan sentiment in the building where Hulk Hogan's making his TNA appearances.
Well, to be fair, a lot of the other times it was like pretty pro-Hogan, and then he turned it around on himself, so...
Well, even before Hogan debuted, we'll get to this at the end of 2009, but during like the last two pay-per-views of 2009, there are chants of who needs Hogan. Like, the crowd don't really want Hogan. And, like, Hogan packed the Impact Zone with his, like, sycophants and diehard fans for his debut in the first couple of weeks, which is the reason he got big reactions. Because they're all, like, the Bubba the Love Sponge squad coming out for Hulk Hogan in those first few weeks of TNA.
little off topic here, but I just showed my housemate the footage of Mick Foley knocking out Bubba the Love Punch.
Ah, very good.
And popped huge. Truly a tremendous piece of footage that everyone should go check out.
It is a very important moment in TNA history of Mick Foley punching Bubba the Love Punch in the face while he forearms him.
But I mean, yeah, I was going to say, he actually elbows him in the face.
Yeah, he gave him a black eye. He actually elbowed him in the face. He sunk that bad boy in.
Broke his nose, apparently.
Good, he deserves it for being an absolute turd.
But yeah, just a little sidebar there at the Bubba Loves Punch, who got mentioned in this month of shows too.
Because where Hogan goes, so does Bubba during this year, anyway.
During the next decade.
The motivation for TNA beyond their cut of the potential revenue created if a Hogan versus Jarrett match drew a big buy rate on pay-per-view would be to put their brand name on the map nationally. Having Hogan's name attached to the TNA logo would give the promotion a legitimate credibility with people who don't follow wrestling closely, but are instrumental in TNA getting outside deals done.
A mythical casual fan.
And to be fair, if you're 2003 TNA and anybody is going to attract the casual fan, it is Hulk Hogan.
But to be fair, I don't think you're going to get the casual fan as much as people who just knew wrestling.
Well, again, I don't want to do my casual fan rant. The whole casual fan doesn't exist, and the people that people are actually talking about when talking about casual fans are usually lapsed fans.
It's the casual wrestling fan, people who know about wrestling but don't keep up with it in the modern era.
It's not a dude who usually watches basketball. Suddenly we're going to become a huge wrestling fan. At best, he'll watch the clip. But yeah, the idea is that they want to break beyond their 8 to 16,000 pay-per-view buy bubble into a broader audience. And I think that the bigger consideration here is that Hogan will lend them legitimacy and credibility in pursuing a TV deal.
I was going to say with sponsors and TV more than anything.
So they can go to TV partners and be like, look, we have Hulk Hogan for however long we have Hulk Hogan. And that might actually sway people in terms of like give them a shot on TV, which is a thing they obviously can't do and want to do because they've like even at this stage, like months ago, they've given up more or less on the weekly pay-per-view model being the future of this company. They know it's not going to sustain the company, but it's a matter of just producing enough content and hanging on long enough to get a TV deal. And the hope is that Hogan would be the guy that would help them get the TV deal.
I think that's completely fair.
So Jimmy Hart has a close personal relationship with Jerry Jarrett for decades. I think Jerry Jarrett was the person actually who gave Jimmy Hart his original break back in I think the late 70s. So it's actually fun that there's multiple people who are like, oh, we're going to work TNA. Sting was another one because it's like, oh well, Jerry gave me my break, so I might as well try and help him out here. Good
thing that we're gonna get that guy out of the company as soon as possible. The guy that everyone likes and wants to repay their debt to.
Yeah, the guy who has deep relationships with so many stars because he gave them their original break, and now they're big stars and can potentially pay it forward. But no, we want to back Vince Russo so he can get Disco. Vince Russo brings Disco, Liam. But who would you want? Hogan and Sting or the Disco Inferno?
Well, you've swayed me.
I've convinced you, have I?
Yeah, the Disco, obviously.
So the whole idea of doing Jarrett and Hogan, is obviously aside from Jarrett being TNA's like A1 star, is to play off of the Bash at the Beach 2000 finish, where there was that we mentioned on the last episode, that famous worked shoot where they did a Jarrett laying down for Hogan, and then Russo ruined it by cutting a shoot promo on Hogan. Again, we'll talk about Russo extensively on this episode as well, but it's interesting that they're building it off of that match, that Bash at the Beach 2000 match, which I don't think anybody cared about at the time. The company involved went out of business, and they're like, listen, we got to call back to this Bash at the Beach match where we did this work shoot angle and never got to pay it off, so we'll pay it off in TNA.
I had no clue what the fuck they were talking about.
I wonder the same, because like this is over, like not over, yeah, it is over 3 years. It's over 3 years since that Bash at the Beach match. So like they're basing this entire thing, and they can't say Bash at the Beach, so they have to say in Florida. So when you're watching this show and Jimmy Hart and Mike Tenay are like, oh, do you mean what happened down in Florida? And Jeff Jarrett freaks out, which happens twice this month. Like the average viewer, I think it's going to be the same as you. They're going to be like, what the fuck are these people talking about?
I had no clue what they're talking about. I thought it was like some backstage thing. I was like, is this like some... Because that's like with the gravitas they gave it. I thought it was like some sort of backstage, like commonly known interaction or something, altercation.
Because, yeah, it's It's that classic pro wrestling problem where they assume, especially in this era, where they assume that the internet fans know everything, so they actually book the television show around them.
Yeah.
Which is amazing to think about, that like the internet fans are constantly derided by these people, but then especially during this Vince Russo era of late WCW, early TNA, they book their entire show around what the not even what the internet know, what they think the internet knows, and their actual casual audience, which is the thing everyone always goes on about, the casual fan, probably has no goddamn idea what these human beings are talking about.
This is a move hoping to attract casual fans, and it's like, that's reference some niche shit that half of them won't remember, and even if they would have remembered it, we can't give them the details to trigger that memory.
And even if they did remember it, they probably didn't like it in the first place.
And if they remembered it, they probably don't care that much either.
I don't think everyone was gagging it to be like, oh, we never got the payoff of that Jarrett and Hogan angle from WCW.
Yeah. I don't know, that's a weird one.
It is kind of classic TNA. Like, they can't just tell their own Hulk Hogan story. They have to be like, oh, we have to go back to the WCW one because that's unresolved territory. Everyone wants the resolution to that story between Jarrett and Hogan and what went down at Bash at the Beach. So we have to finish out that story instead of just having him come in to beat up our heel champion.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
The Jarrett and Hogan have talked extensively on the phone and had face-to-face meetings over the past month. Both sides are said to be excited about the possibilities of a relationship.
Me too.
So there is a whole like cavalcade of things that happened this month. In this, like, we have 4 pages of notes in the show notes at tnachat.com talking about just this Hulk Hogan story. Not even like talking about the stuff that happened on the TV show about this Hulk Hogan story, just the stuff that built to this Hulk Hogan story.
Yeah. But to be fair, as far as actual Hogan on TV stuff, there isn't much to talk about.
But like they do bring in Jimmy Hart, and they do continue to build the last 2 episodes around Jarrett and Jimmy Hart, even though they know at that stage that the Hogan thing at least is not happening for now.
To be fair, I think the last show they tried to turn it into more of a Jimmy Hart versus Jeff Jarrett thing than a Hulk Hogan versus Jeff Jarrett thing.
Listen, who's a bigger star, Jimmy or Hulk?
I mean, Jimmy has an album.
It's true, he does, and he has made many good theme songs.
How many theme songs has Hulk Hogan made?
So there is a bunch of talk about where this show is actually going to take place. The frontrunner is Las Vegas, according to one source. The TNA officials have been talking to representatives of the Aladdin Hotel. There's also the Orleans in Vegas. There's the Municipal Auditorium comes up, which is where TNA held some of their early shows, where AEW held Dynamite last week. The Mid-South Coliseum.
Yeah.
So all these venues are bandied about, with the big thing, I think, the big key being Hulk Hogan does not want to wrestle in the Asylum in a building with 1,300 people.
Do you think Hulk Hogan would have eventually wrestled in the Asylum had he signed?
Well, if he was there long term, he would have had to, right?
Do they go for a bigger building every time they build to a Hogan match?
I guess it depends how often Hogan would be wrestling.
And is he just going to be on the show every week, not wrestling?
Because we'll talk about like what his commitments to TNA for this match would have been in a sec, where he would have only done 1 live appearance in the Asylum. He would have done a phone call as well. And then they would have built to them doing that match in another bigger building. Probably, I'd imagine if it went through, it probably would have been like the Municipal Auditorium somewhere in Nashville. Because I actually think some of that is what spooked Hogan, that like venue stuff. And like at one stage, it's like the front runner was the Asylum, and I don't think in a million years he's walking out to wrestle in front of that 1,300 people building.
Do you think they could have got that original building that they ran for the first show?
Oh, gone down to Huntsville?
Yeah.
I see it would have been somewhere in the South, because the big problem with Vegas is they didn't have a promoter's license in Vegas. And obviously all of this came together very fast, and they announced the pay-per-view very fast. And they wanted to get to Jarrett and Hogan within 2 months, basically, of signing Hogan. But they couldn't promote in Vegas because they didn't have a promoter's license. And that's the main reason they started looking elsewhere.
I'm just imagining Hogan in the Asylum, in this terrible, terrible building.
It's probably not the first time he's worked the building. Maybe it is.
It's probably the first time he's worked that building.
You got the red, white. Maybe it'll be like, because famously WCW, there's the story about how like Center Stage was this old rundown building until Hogan signed with WCW, and they actually like started painting the building and putting up curtains and making it look decent when Hogan signed. So maybe it would have been like that, or it's like the Asylum is this.
No,
old
they already
rundown
did
building.
that. They already did the big renovations.
It's still an old rundown building.
Yeah, but I don't think they were going to get much more out of it, to be honest.
They could have put up some curtains.
Oh, wow.
Add an extra lighting rig or two.
If they do all that, then they won't be able to throw people off of it anymore.
That's true. Slash would have like half his moveset removed.
And who are you going to pick, Slash or Hogan?
I'd pick Slash every time.
What if Hogan had to join the new church?
Yeah.
Actually, I'm more excited for the prospect of the franchise and Hulk Hogan building up a big feud together.
I do like the idea that, like, James Mitchell, this whole month builds the Raven getting his hands on James Mitchell. Raven's about to get his hands on James Mitchell while Hulk Hogan shows up to stop him.
Yeah, the red, white, and blue.
I don't think that theme would quite work as well as the new church, but well, sure.
What if it's James Mitchell singing that theme?
Oh god, that would rule, because James Mitchell does do karaoke, that's his thing.
He also sang the new church theme.
Does he?
Yeah.
Does he?
Yeah, he sings the new church theme.
You sure about that?
That is true.
That doesn't sound like James Mitchell.
Take you under. Yeah, that's him.
I'm not sure about that.
That is him.
I did quite like there was a jazzier version of the new church theme for Vampiro this month. It was very good. It's much more upbeat. It's very weird.
Sorry, Angel Salazar says in the comments of this new church video, I'm imagined to Finn Balor and Seth Rollins join to the new church. If Father James Mitchell go to WWE every day, I'm imagined to entrance this song.
But the Sinister Minister jumps and starts a new church with Finn Balor and Seth Rollins.
Sorry, there's a lot of things that just happened here. Where Jake Dandy 3 years ago tweeted R.I.P. Jim Mitchell, and then someone said he's still alive. To which Jake Dandy responded, "Nope, that was Taz."
Oh, well, James Mitchell did get killed off on Impact at one stage. Maybe he was talking about that.
To which he responded, "That's impossible. Abyss shot him."
No, he survived the shot. He did get killed by Havoc on Impact, but then Rosemary resurrected him so that he could officiate the wedding in which Johnny Bravo got shot, but Johnny Bravo didn't die.
That is definitely Jim Mitchell singing that song, by the way.
I don't believe you. Let's throw it out to our fans of You've Got to Be Kidding Me. Let us know on Twitter whether you think that's actually James Mitchell singing the new church theme. I don't think it is.
100%.
So the latest word on the pay-per-view site is the Nashville Auditorium. Although TNA officials are still hoping to run an event in Las Vegas, there is unlikely to be enough time to obtain a promoter's license and promote the arena properly. Hogan's side is banking on the idea that TNA will do a major advertising campaign, and on their side they will attempt to call in some favors and use celebrity friends of Hogan's to appear live with George Foreman's name being bandied about. George Foreman actually gets a name dropped on the show this month, where Jimmy Hart is mentioning Hogan's agent and mentions other clients of Hogan's agent, including George Foreman. An attempt to get placed on mainstream talk shows the week of the event, where Hulk Hogan will no doubt do appearances and not mention TNA at all, which is the perfect Hulk Hogan standard in 2010, which I assume he would have established here in 2003.
Sorry, I was just trying to find out the Jim Mitchell
We're moving on from the James Mitchell theme song.
Jim Mitchell gate, I had to find out.
We have thrown it to our audience. They could be the arbitrators of whether or not that is James Mitchell.
Not the audience.
We have moved on. Hulk Hogan.
Oh, but we're still talking about Hulk Hogan.
There is still like 4 pages of Hulk Hogan notes, so you calm down.
All right.
We have plenty to get through in this Hulk Hogan section of the show without you derailing us more with James Mitchell theme songs, your imaginary James Mitchell theme songs.
Okay.
This is like people who think Big Show does the well at the start of his theme song.
Except mine's true.
TNA has zero national mainstream ink, and the belief is that the Jarretts feel Hogan is the one wrestler who can get them some interest from the millions of currently disgruntled fans, most of whom don't know TNA exists. So it's once again, Liam, the play for the lapsed WCW fan.
I mean, I guess at this point it's still worth going for it.
So as mentioned, Hogan has basically set up to do a phone call on the October 22nd show, for which he would appear live for the first time on the October 29th show, and then they would build to the November 30th pay-per-view. So they would have one live appearance in the Asylum where they would shoot their angle, and then they would get ready basically to do everything for the 30th. Bound for Glory, Liam.
Huh, I'm familiar.
Which is fun that they kept that name for their biggest show, even though it didn't happen here in 2003.
Listen, you gotta admire TNA's commitment.
They like the name.
Yeah, if they ever think of something, they stick to it. And they will go for it. We saw it with Genesis already.
They will dig out all of these names and ideas no matter how long has passed.
And I imagine if there was some sort of folio with just all these old ideas in it. They had Robbie E's name circled in it, and they just blew off the dust one day and were like, this is it.
Bro! The word in the locker room is that Hogan has refused to appear on the same show as Vince Russo and doesn't even want Vince Russo in the same arena as him.
Okay, maybe Hogan's good.
There's also been talk that the legal issues between the two men will also prevent Russo from appearing. However, there is at least suspicion in the TNA locker room that this is all a work set up by TNA officials to make it seem like a bigger deal when Russo and Hogan take part in the same storyline.
I mean, can you blame any of them for thinking this?
Because Vince Russo is written out of TV this month. There's an angle that takes him off TV, which everyone, again, assumes is because of this story that Hogan doesn't want Russo there.
It has to be true, right?
And then there are even, rumblings around that, Russo's not even writing the show anymore, which Dave Meltzer debunks. We'll talk about that in a minute.
I was going to say, I can debunk that by what happens on the last episode of the month.
By actually watching it, being like, oh no, there's a first blood chair and a pole match. I wonder who's goddamn writing this show.
I think I literally said while watching it, oh, Vince Russo's back booking.
So even then, they were trying to do oh, Russo's out. He's not at the show. What's happening with Vince Russo? So I do think they're laying the seeds for a Hogan Russo worked shoot.
Great, that'll do numbers.
Dutchman talent Scott D'Amore held a meeting with the wrestlers prior to the Wednesday, October 15th pay-per-view, basically doing a rah-rah, build them up, pay-per-view's coming, Hogan's coming, everything. TNA is a rocket ship ready to explode, as Jeff Jarrett loves to say.
Fuck you, they're wrong, you're right. I want to see Scott D'Amore do the Paulie speech.
He's probably done a few of them in his life.
I want the exact same one, though.
Do you think every GCW show starts with a Paulie speech?
Well, if you listen to @GCW Truther, I don't think there's any rah-rah speeches anymore.
No, I listen to @GCW Truther.
Oh, I listen to @GCW Truther.
You might think this is a joke. All of these exist, by the way.
It's just funny because they started calling each other by their shoot names.
They even dropped the pretense of why even start burners. Oh dear, so they're trying to get everyone on board, everyone excited about this new Hulk Hogan era of TNA.
I thought you were going to say about this new Circle 6 promotion.
It's actually funny, again, there are so many parallels to 2009 when Hogan comes in. Dixie Carter does the same thing, except she put it on television.
Yeah.
The very famous Dixie Carter segment where she's like, if you're not behind me... Sorry, Liam, go.
If you're not behind me... then you can get out.
Yep.
Follow me on Twitter.
Where Dixie did her big promo where she's like, if you don't agree with my decisions, there's the door. And Hogan's coming in and this company is going good places.
If you don't agree with me, there is the door. I think the Dixie's getting better.
I think it's getting worse, but it's getting better as it gets worse.
I think she's getting sassier. And I appreciate it. I've really captured the Dixie sass. I've got heel Dixie.
Well, that's the only Dixie, really, isn't there? Is there a babyface Dixie?
Yeah, I got Dixieland Dixie.
So there are multiple players coming in for Hogan, one of which is TNA, one of which is Morad Muhammad, who wants to start a 2-hour wrestling boxing combined TV show based around Hogan. And then the third one, of course, is New Japan Pro Wrestling.
I thought you were going to talk about celebrity wrestling.
No, that doesn't happen for years.
I watched episodes of that.
I watched every episode of Celebrity Wrestling with Dustin Diamond. How did you not know who Screech was then?
I only watched one episode.
You freaking... Didn't Screech win that show?
I don't know. Maybe we should watch that. Maybe that should be our next Patreon series.
If we can find it, we'll dig it out.
Sorry, I was going to say the New Japan stuff is actually interesting. I got to admit, I'm pretty compelled to watch a 20-minute Hulk Hogan Masahiro Chono match.
It's not even the main event, but I'm sure it's probably pretty good.
I kind of want to... Because Hogan always worked hard in Japan.
Yeah, well, he did 2 more moves, but yes.
Yeah, but that's him working hard. He was bouncing around. You ever see those earlier stuff that he did? He's bouncing around and taking big bumps.
Yeah, so New Japan are also making a play for Hogan. They want him to be involved regularly, so he had this Chono match he was meant to do January 4th as well. They also offered him the book, so...
Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm imagining Hogan doing a G1.
I'm imagining Hogan booking New Japan.
Just WCW. I can't believe they offered him the book.
Yeah, there's a story about how they want Hogan to be involved in New Japan long term, so they offered him booking power. And even when he went over for that match against Chono introduced him as a booking consultant.
Wow, That's insane.
They want the Hulkster, brother. Everyone wants the Hulkster.
I'm just imagining like Hogan booking like the IWGP Junior Tag undercard stuff.
What do you think Hogan thinks of Liger?
I think he respects Liger.
You think Hogan knows who like Yuji Nagata is?
No. I think his knowledge base ends at like early 90s New Japan.
Even though Nagata worked a bunch of WCW.
Yeah, but like he didn't watch any of that.
He's not watching these undercard matches with these Japanese imports.
He's not watching Thunder.
And he just has to listen to Days of Thunder instead, where he can hear all about the Yuji Nagata matches. You see, well, Lee mentioned us on the most recent episode of Days of Thunder, so I have to return the favor and mention Days of Thunder, where you can listen to in the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network.
Did Yuji Nagata even work Thunder?
Yeah, Yuji Nagata would have worked Thunder.
WCW Thunder, January 29th, 1998. Yuji Nagata versus Goldberg.
Yeah, dream match.
I'm watching that after we finish this.
It's probably like surprisingly good.
I'm putting it in the watch later.
I assume that Nagata does some leg kicks and then Goldberg spears him.
Probably. Oh, I skipped ahead, and Goldberg seems to have some sort of ankle lock on Yuji Nagata, so I think they're working shoot style, brother.
Hell yeah. So if you want an idea of who's going to be on this November 30th show, if it actually happens, Sting was approached for about appearing, but he didn't seem particularly interesting. He had signed a 4-match deal, but hadn't entirely been returning TNA's calls lately, but we will get to Sting in the course of this month. Jarrett had tentative plans for a Christopher Daniels Neil Skipper against AMW match as a rematch of one of the best bouts in company history.
Which is something we had seen the beginnings of play out on TV this month.
And something that also went absolutely nowhere. Where Daniels does the tease that he needs his brothers, and then like 4 weeks go by and nothing happens. As well as Tiger Mask versus Hoovy, if Hoovy can solve his visa problems, and then...
You're notoriously your least favorite wrestler of all time, Tiger Mask.
I do not like Tiger Mask 4. Give up the gimmick, dude. Go try and stand on your own 2 feet.
You want him to give it up at like 55?
Yes. I want him even more so to give up the gimmick at 55 and eventually be like, I am my own man. No one would probably make him GHC heavyweight champ.
Maybe. At 51 years old, you're like, alright, time to be Yoshihiro Yamazaki.
Yeah, time to be your own man.
He's teaming with Robbie Eagles. Oh, okay, yeah. You know how we were talking about Sasuke?
Mm-hmm.
On the watch-along?
Were we?
Yeah,
Oh, as a Ninja Warrior, not the great Sasuke, okay.
Outside of wrestling, Yamazaki appeared on the second Sasuke competition in 1998.
Oh, good for him.
Although he failed to make it past the first obstacle.
First obstacle? Oh, that's very bad.
Sorry, I'm getting spoiled about 2007 TNA on Tiger Mask Wikipedia.
Yeah, he shows up in 2007 and 2008.
Wow, I'm excited. Is that why you don't like him? Because he didn't shit the bed in those matches or something?
No, he was actually pretty fine in those matches.
No, it's almost like he's actually pretty okay.
So after all of this, after all the negotiations with TNA, after all the putting together cards, after all of the scouting venues, after all of that, Hulk Hogan pulls out of Bound for Glory. NWA-TNA officials decided to postpone the November 30th Bound for Glory pay-per-view after Hulk Hogan's decision to have his knee scoped. As announced on the October 22nd show, TNA is planning to reschedule the event, with most sources predicting it will take place in January or February. Spoilers! It doesn't.
They should have done it January 4th.
Well, Hogan was meant to work the Dome, and he doesn't do that either, so...
That's so funny. Oh, God, this is so funny. Imagine being the guy who's like, I don't want to work this show so badly that I'm going to go get surgery.
I do think it is very much the case that Hulk Hogan was using all of this as leverage to go back to WWE. WWE didn't bite, so he's like, fuck it, I'm getting knee surgery. I also think there's a bit of Hogan who thought him against Jarrett and TNA wouldn't do a number. And Hogan is fiercely protective of all of that. He is fiercely protective of his ability to pop a rating to protect his own value in the wrestling market. And I think he thought that if he did in fact show up in TNA, if he did do the match, even if he became NWA champion, it probably wouldn't pop like a huge rating. It probably wouldn't do a huge attendance. So that would decrease his value for WWE and perhaps potential outside projects starting up. So I think that's another factor that Hogan's like, I kind of don't want to do it because I think it'll affect my aura.
They should have done Hogan Raven.
That would have been the match. The postponement may give TNA enough time to make arrangements so that they can hold the show in Vegas, although the Nashville Auditorium had been discussed as a potential venue. Hogan wanted the show to take place in Tampa. They know not because he lives close to Tampa and it would be easy to travel there, but because he thinks he could draw there.
I mean, he's probably right.
Because that's where the Bubba the Love Sponge show would have the largest market penetration, so he could get a bunch of stuff done.
Oh, that's such an easy joke there, but I'm not going to do it.
Using the word penetration in relation to Hulk Hogan and Bubba the Love Sponge?
It's too easy. I'm not going to do it.
I'm teeing you up too well, is what you're saying.
Yeah, not this time.
The theory is that Hogan was not crazy about the idea of working a major pay-per-view event on such short notice and wanted to make sure that there would be enough time to promote the event.
That's it.
Properly.
That's what I believe that to be the case.
What I find quite a funny note, given the week before they did the big rah-rah speech, November 30th pay-per-view, Hogan's coming in. There was no formal announcement to the locker room from anyone in TNA management regarding the pay-per-view postponement. Word spread throughout the locker room of Hogan's injury via the internet, but there were some wrestlers who felt that a meeting to discuss the situation was needed, which frankly I would agree with.
I mean, yes, but they can't go back on the rah-rah speech now. Paulie does the fuck you, and then it's like, next week, hey guys, we were wrong. They were right.
We have to calamitously backtrack here, so we're going to do it as quietly as we can.
Yeah, we're going to let people find out at home, so maybe they don't want to talk about it.
So we went all in on this Hulk Hogan guy. This guy's coming in, he's doing a big match with Jeff Jarrett. We're going to do our first 3-hour pay-per-view. It's bound for glory. It's going to be this big, huge event. We're going to hype you up. We're going to start promoting it on TV. We're going to change the champion. We're going to turn our top babyface heel. We're going to turn our top heel babyface. All to get ourselves ready for this big Hogan Oh, no, Hogan's not coming anymore. Never mind, guys. We're just going to click on it. Everything we do.
I don't think in their big rah-rah speech they were talking about how they had to hotshot the booking.
We had to throw everything we were building to out the window to turn Jarrett heel and turn Styles face.
To be fair, Jarrett probably should have been heel the whole time. Naito should have been face the whole time. So,
According to those close to Hogan, he tweaked his knee in the Chono match and he will be undergoing surgery on October 31st.
I'm watching that match and I'm going to be looking at his knee the entire time.
There's a theory from Dave Meltzer, but that we'll talk about in a second. According to those close to Hogan, he had never signed a TNA contract to do the pay-per-view. This puts the company in a position where it has to publicly explain the postponement of the show, which they kind of do. We'll talk about that when we get to the actual creative of the show, when we talk about broad topics. But they try to a little. At this point, Hogan is still scheduled to work the January 4th Tokyo Dome show and has verbally agreed to do a match with Jeff Jarrett in February. Jimmy Hart was going through with his scheduled appearance on the October 22nd show, where he was going to explain Hogan's injury and possibly the new date. They didn't announce any new date, just that the match would happen sometime in the future.
I think they should have just gone through with it.
Gone through with what?
Just do a big-ass pay-per-view.
Oh, just without Hogan?
Yeah, just do Bound for Glory, see if you can get Sting into work in his place. You don't have to do it in, such a big arena, but, they should have just done Bound for Glory.
Well, we do have a few Sting matches coming up for the rest of the year, so do you think they could have just pivoted to doing Sting and Jarrett?
Yeah, I think you just do Sting Jarrett, maybe you say you postpone it and give it, an extra month of build or whatever. But yeah, I think you just run Sting Jarrett.
You think that would actually draw?
Sting Jarrett, you do your AMW rematch, and that frees up AJ for a big match.
Potentially X match against Michael Shane.
Yeah, that's the big match.
Well, we'll talk about where AJ's going in a minute as well.
No. But you know what I mean? I just think they should have committed to it and ran the show. With, maybe some less high expectations. Maybe just rebrand one of the monthly ones into a Bound for Glory or something. Sorry, one of the weekly ones into a Bound for Glory.
And then, you could probably just still run it from the Asylum then. It's fine to run that show from the Asylum.
Or even if you want to make it a big deal and run it from a slightly bigger building, I don't know. I just feel like you should have committed to it at this point, and that backing out of it completely is worse than just backing out of the Hogan situation.
Especially given, how they did go all in on, they announced it and they started building to it and they showed all the footage from the angle in Japan that we'll talk about, where Jeff Jarrett attacked Hulk Hogan in Japan. We'll talk about all that when we were going through the actual shows. They were all in on this already on TV, and then just the next week Jimmy Hart comes out. It's sorry guys, it's not happening. Sorry.
And Sting's a big enough replacement. Yeah, they should have just committed into Unbound for Glory, I think.
Another question many are asking is regarding Hogan's right knee injury. Hogan has a history of bad knees, and anyone who has watched him wrestle over the last many years can see the knees have given him more problems than any other body part. This is from the Wrestling Observer.
Alright, Dave.
Dave is like, look at this man's shoddy knees.
I love Dave's, like, bitchiness in his writing. It's very fun.
And I love that he is like the premier writer in the genre, and he's just like throwing in sassy jabs.
I was listening to some Between the Sheets stuff, and he was talking about the Big Egg show, and it was really funny when, like, Dave would review, like, the FMW stuff, and he'd be like, oh, this girl was, like, 5'2", oh, like, how small, and then, like, when it comes to the 4'11" All Japan women's girl, he doesn't bring it up at all. It's like, he knows where his bread's buttered.
Those who have socialized with Hogan note that he moves very slowly when the cameras are off because of knee damage. He had an artificial knee put in a few years back and has had several knee surgeries in recent years. Hogan has also worked for years on bad knees, and this is only one match. Jimmy Hart told TNA officials that Hogan wanted to make sure he was 100% and not limp through the match, as if Hogan's athletic ability was in question here.
Do you think Jimmy felt like shit for having to do this for Hulk? Or do you think he's like, I'll take it on the chin, I'll do my best to make something come out of this?
I think when you look at the angle Jimmy does when he shows up, and he gets the absolute shit kicked out of him by Jeff Jarrett.
You think that's like a make good?
I think that's a make good, where the dude is willing to get himself whipped to shreds just to be like, listen, Hulk's not showing up. And let's be real, I think we all probably know he's never showing up, so you can beat the shit out of me instead.
What a good pal.
What a nice guy.
I mean, and let's be fair, I'm sure Hulk was like his meal ticket for a lot of years, so probably has some sort of responsibility there.
And he's basically his promoter. He's not his agent, but yeah, he's basically his promoter.
I miss managers that were like shoot managers for people.
Whether, back to a moment of sassy Dave, whether his knees are healthy or not, his match quality isn't going to change appreciably. And however the crowd is going to react to him would be the same way either way. It was also noted that Hogan could have suffered a minor injury in the match with Chono and not realized it in the heat of the match. It could not have been that serious because he appeared at a New Japan company meeting the next day, walking around the same as he did before the Chono match. Reporters also noticed he was not limping when he went home. The story given was that the knee started swelling up days later and he went to get it checked. And when the test came back on October 21st, they immediately contacted TNA and asked to get the show delayed.
It was the altitude from the plane ride. Flared it up.
Just messed with his knees.
I believe it. Who am I to say that Hulk Hogan's lying?
You don't think Hulk Hogan is a man of low moral fiber?
I think that Hulk Hogan guy, pretty upfront about his feelings.
He's on the up and up. He's a good guy. The tentative plans for the Hogan-Jarrett match are now either February 8th or February 15th for the show, with Tampa or Las Vegas at this point being the major cities under consideration.
I'm excited for that match.
Well, you will never get it.
No.
You know what? When Hogan debuts in TNA in 2010 and he buries the absolute living shit out of Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah, what the fuck, Hulk?
They never call back to this.
Jarrett, well, they probably didn't want to, like, actually piss off Hogan.
But I would have thought, like, the whole thing about this is the Bash at the Beach 2000 stuff. Jeff Jarrett attacks Hogan in Japan. It would have been the easiest story in the world to go, you know, last time I was flirting with TNA, you came to Japan and beat the shit out of me. That's the reason I'm burying you now for no reason whatsoever.
Well, you see, Garrett, that may reflect poorly on Hulk Hogan, and that's not okay.
And Jarrett's like, well, you didn't show up at all.
Yeah, so, like, if it was to reflect poorly on Jeff Jarrett, I think it would be fine. But on Hulkster, I don't think that's going to fly.
They were not about to announce the actual new date for Bound for Glory until they find out how long the recovery time for Hogan will be. Hogan ended up having arthroscopic surgery on October 31st. He has not committed to the Tokyo Dome show at New Japan, but will make a decision based on healing in the next 2 weeks. And when he gets the timetable, the pay-per-view will be officially rescheduled.
I'm sure he would have just worked like some sort of tag with Chono, right?
Yeah, probably, where he could do very little. He doesn't do anything. That Chono match was his last New Japan match, I believe.
Trust me, I know. I looked up the schedule immediately after finding out he worked New Japan in 2003.
In front of a crowd of either 37, 47, or 55,000, depending on which number you believe.
Or like 23,000.
Well, the number Dave has was 37.
Or like 23,000. So
that is more or less an hour on the Hulk Hogan flirting with TNA.
Thank God we now don't have to talk about it in the shows at all.
Yeah, there's no Hulk Hogan involvement at all in the actual shows that we'd have to also talk about.